It is Women of Strength Wednesday, and we are so excited. We are so excited for this story. We have just been chatting with Sarah, and Sarah had a very, very interesting birth story with chock full of so much information. Megan, do you feel like, I feel like our stories that we're getting lately, there's just not just one piece, like one educational piece. I feel like there's so many components that work together to make these births happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so Sarah's story is very much like that. But I'm really, really excited because Sarah lives right in the middle of me and Megan. She's local to Utah. And one of my doula besties, it was her doula. And Sarah switched to Birth Center when she was 39 weeks and 5 days pregnant due to COVID-19 restrictions at her hospital and her provider becoming less supportive. And so if that is not enough information for you, there's more. There's more to her story, and we are so excited for her to share it. But before we do that, Megan has a review of the week for us.
Yes, I do. And what's funny is, so she's in the middle of us, like city-wise, and then her doula is one of Julie's best friends, and then one of my clients is one of her friends. So like
we're all connected.
It's very intertwined. Okay, so I've got a review, and this is from Jessica Giffen, not Griffin, Giffen, I think. And it's on Facebook. Hopefully we haven't read this one before, but it says, I've been listening to your podcast since I found out I was pregnant with my second baby, and I am now 38 weeks pregnant. At 36 weeks, an ultrasound showed that my baby was breech, and I was heartbroken. They scheduled my C-section for January 1st, and my hopes for a VBAC that I had been preparing for were pretty much crushed. But today, I went in for my 38-week appointment, and I had a feeling something was different. I had a very skeptical doctor check, and sure enough, baby girl is now head down, and my C-section for January 1st has been canceled. I know we still aren't out of the woods yet, but I'm at such peace and have been having a hopeful heart for a healing birth experience. I have found such knowledge and strength from listening to your podcast, and wanted to thank you so much for everything that you do and bringing all of these women of strength together. Thank you a million times, Jessica Giffen. And Aww. I'm going to write her right now and ask her how things went.
Yes. Did she have her baby? Like, what happened? Did she have a VBAC? We need to know these things.
I know. Like, I want to know. So,
you guys.
I love all the reviews.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I do. I love them. I was just kind of like scrolling through, trying to find one here today for Sarah's story, and they give me chills. Like, they really do give me chills. We talk about it all the time. Maybe it's just something like in human nature. Maybe we just love hearing something nice being said about us. I don't know. But it really does. It feels so good, and it gives me chills to know that what Julie and I have going for you is doing exactly what our goal was.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is like, it's just very validating, and I don't want to like toot our own horns or anything, but we work really hard. I think harder than most people realize.
Yeah.
Between podcasting and getting our courses set up and doing recordings for our courses and recording more videos to add even more content to the courses and answering all your messages and emails and organizing and keeping this ship running smoothly. It's just nice for all of our hard work to get that feedback that it's helping people. And so if you haven't already, would you help us help you by leaving us a review on either Apple Podcasts, Facebook, or you can just Google the VBAC link and leave a review right there on our Google business page.
You are tuned in to the VBAC Link podcast with Julie Francom and Megan Heaton, VBAC moms, doulas, and educators here to help you get inspired for birth after having a C-section. Together, they have created a robust VBAC preparation course along with this uplifting podcast for women who are preparing for their VBAC. Although these episodes are VBAC specific, they encourage all expectant moms to listen and educate themselves on how to avoid a cesarean from the get-go. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is not meant to replace advice from any other qualified medical professional. Here are your hosts, Julie and Megan.
Do you want a VBAC but don't know where to start? It's easy to feel like we need to figure it all out on our own. That's what we used to do, and it was the loneliest, most ineffective thing we have ever done. That's why Megan and I created our signature course, How to VBAC, the ultimate preparation course for parents that you can find at thevbaclink.com. It is the most comprehensive VBAC preparation course in the world, perfectly packaged in an online, self-paced video course. Together, Megan and I have helped over 800 parents get the birth that they wanted, and we are ready to help you too. Head on over to thevbaclink.com to find out more and sign up today. That's thevbaclink.com. See you there. Okay, listen up, guys. We have Sarah here, and she is pretty incredible. Besides the fact that she has a really cool birth story, she is a musician and a vocalist and a violinist, and she performs with the YouTube group Chrome Street Quartet. That's Chrome like shiny chrome.
Right now.
Yeah, Chrome Street Quartet. Yes, so go look up her YouTube channel, give it a follow because it's pretty amazing. She's married to Bob, has 2 boys, and really enjoys adventures with her young family. And we are so excited to listen to Sarah's story. So without further ado, we will give it over to Sarah.
Julie and Megan, thank you so much for having me on this morning. I also want to say thank you. The resources that you guys provided really helped make me feel like I was educated, informed, and able to make some of the decisions that I did later on in my pregnancy. I also felt really inspired just by the phrase that you guys share, that we are women of strength. It takes a lot of strength to have a baby, and those words would continue to replay in my mind that I am a woman of strength. I can do this. And just knowing that there were other women who had had similar experiences and that I was able to listen to on your podcast just really helped me throughout my journey. So I do want to just jump right in. I had a great pregnancy, and I had a provider that seemed very VBAC supportive. It was my very last appointment. I was 39 and 5 days. So it was a Friday afternoon, and I was due on Monday. And I walked in, I was excited. I almost canceled because I knew that, COVID-19, it had become a testing site, that hospital. And so I thought about canceling and just showing up, in labor and delivery. But I did go in, and she said that she had been thinking a lot about me and that she wouldn't be able to support me any longer in a vaginal delivery. I was totally shocked. I started shaking.
Curveball. Holy cow.
Yeah, my heart just started pounding. And she just kind of continued and said that there were providers in the hospital who were being tested for COVID. And because this specific hospital had a policy that for attending a VBAC, the doctor had to be in the hospital the whole time. She said, I have 4 kids and my husband at home, and I just don't think I can wait in the hospital for 12 hours while you labor.
Oh, wow.
It was a huge thing to hear that, because 12 hours actually seemed like a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And it's not like you're going to be laboring at the hospital the whole time.
Yeah, I knew that my labor would probably be long. My first labor with my son was 40 hours, and so I wasn't expecting anything less than 12. But she also just continued and said that she had been reviewing my chart and felt like I was high risk. So when I had my first baby, my water broke prematurely. I had only dilated to 2 centimeters. I had been on Pitocin off and on throughout that 40-hour experience, and my baby was OP. He was sunny side up, and so he was stuck, and I had a C-section. But in my operative report, it said that the reason for the C-section was failure to progress. And as I understood it,
they did that to me too.
The failure to progress is after you're at 6 centimeters. And so that was kind of an eye-opening experience to see that that's how they had classified me. And so
I had never told you, right? I had never told you that.
I had just looked at my OP, at my report, later.
Yeah.
And so she said, a lot of times if a woman has that experience, the first pregnancy, she'll also have failure to progress thereafter.
And can we just talk about the fact where she said, I feel like you're high risk? Is that a medical diagnosis?
Where are you high risk in any of
her
that?
Feeling.
She
feels that nothing about that makes you high risk.
Feeling or not, there's nothing there to say you were high risk. Nothing.
And I was so excited to have a VBAC and had been researching and really done my homework on it. That just the chance to try was what I wanted. And all of a sudden she was saying, hey, if you don't deliver by 40 weeks, then I'll perform a C-section. And it was at that moment that I just knew that I would not be able to deliver with her, that my body probably would just not be able to relax and feel safe in that environment. So I held it together.
At that hospital a lot. Like they'll induce on due dates for VBAC.
Well, and that's what she said, was that because of COVID, the hospital was offering a C-section or an induction at 38 weeks for every woman.
Yeah.
38 weeks?
And that's happening right now too.
What?
A lot of people are saying, well, the thing is like, this is what's happening. This is like bugging me so much. So there's the RIVE study, that the 39 week, right?
Yeah.
And I swear to you that since that has happened, this is my own personal opinion. This is not evidence-based. Go check out Evidence-Based Birth for more evidence-based. This is my own personal opinion, is since the whole 39 week trial, all of a sudden it's like 41 weeks is gone. That's not a thing anymore. 40 weeks is late. 39 weeks is early, and 38 weeks is acceptable for cesarean. Just like 39 weeks was, you know what I mean? I swear I keep seeing this, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, are we going to start delivering babies at 36 weeks because now we're going to do a 37-week trial? Like, what is happening? So,
the trial is so flawed and non-conclusive and only relevant to first-time moms. So there's that.
Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Sorry, we're going to stop interrupting you. We're going to stop interrupting you. I promise.
Well, and because of our conversation and, just how I felt in that room right there, I knew that when I left, like the rest of my day would probably be spent looking for a new provider. But I was also feeling really emotional. I felt abandoned. I felt that I didn't, know what I would do if I had a baby the next day. I felt like I was so close that for her to, give me that ultimatum, was just kind of in her best interest and not looking after, the mother and the baby in the care that they were providing at this hospital. Luckily, I had hired a doula. Around 32 weeks, I had been feeling like I needed an advocate. I needed someone that could help me, to get to this goal of having a VBAC. And so I called my husband. I asked if he'd be supportive of us trying to find a new provider and kind of doing things a different way. And then I called our doula, and she was amazing. She's also a midwife student. And so she was able to connect us with her attending midwife. We had a meeting the next day, and they were willing to take us on as clients. She asked me what my perfect birth looked like. So I was just able to share with her that I wanted to be able to let my body kind of take the lead. And of course I was scared and nervous, wondering if I could do it unmedicated. But we talked through all of my concerns, and I finally felt peace, and I knew that my body was prepared to start this adventure of the labor and delivery process. So the weekend came and went. His due date came and went, and still no baby. But I had been feeling contractions, and the feelings were so much better than a contraction on Pitocin. Those were very, very intense and painful. And these natural contractions, as they started to ramp up, didn't have that same sort of pain. I was really grateful that they just were able to build slowly, and my body was able to adapt and learn how to manage with that. So it was one day after his due date. It was around dinner time, and the contractions started to become a little bit more regular. I got excited and felt like maybe this is it, like the timing kind of seems right. So I labored for a few hours. They got closer and closer. They were about 3 to 4 minutes apart. I called my doula, let her know. And then I decided it was time to rest so I could have enough energy for the day.
Smart.
But my baby had different plans, and all through the night, I just couldn't get comfortable enough to sleep. My cute husband was up all night with me, and we would do that slow dancing pose, and I would moan, and I would kind of sing low, try to relax as I was going through these contractions. And I kept telling myself, you can call your doula at 6 a.m. Just get through the night so that everybody else has the strength they need to support you in this delivery.
That's the perfect time to get called to a birth.
Right? So the next morning, it was actually around 8 o'clock in the morning, we called my mother-in-law to come pick up my toddler so that they could hang out while we went to the birth center. And then we called our doula. She came to the house and kind of just observed how things were going for a little while. She suggested that we should pack our bags and go to the birth center. So I was getting so excited that we were actually going to be meeting our baby boy soon. And we had planned to go to the birth center around 8 centimeters. We wanted to, be in active labor and just kind of go there for the delivery. So I wasn't sure that my body was quite there, but I was on board for heading over. Our birth center was actually only about 10 minutes away. And so the drive there was pretty manageable. But my first cervical check as we arrived only showed that I was at a 4. So I was disappointed.
Oh, that's hard.
I had progressed further than I had with my first delivery. So that was really exciting and felt like my body has done this, like it's already overcome what it couldn't do last time. That thought was in my mind. So we just went outside. We started curb walking. We did some belly lifts. We spoke with someone who was in their car and asked if we needed a ride to the hospital. We said, nope, we're just having this. And so we just kind of worked through the process. We came back into the birth center, and when we did another check, my midwife actually found 3 little fingers on the top of his head. And so the reason that we hadn't progressed more with, the amount of time I had labored was because he had that nuchal hand. And at this point, it was that question of what should we do next? Like, can we help him shift positions? And so they actually recommended that I go to my chiropractor. I hadn't been seeing him very long. I had only had 2 or 3 appointments, but each time it did feel like it, helped me to feel more relaxed, and that my hip, felt
more
better.
Aligned.
Exactly.
Who was your chiropractor?
Jason Vance. He's actually just really local, and he did a wonderful job. We scheduled that appointment. It was for about 90 minutes later. And then as we started progress, we weren't sure that we would make it because things got more intense, and my water hadn't broken yet, but our doula did come with us to the appointment just in case that happened and she would be catching a baby, in a different location. So we went to the chiropractic appointment, and I felt so bad because every time I had a contraction, I had to jump off the table and, just like be in the arms of my husband. And I'm sure that he was, like a little surprised at how natural and unmedicated birth looked on me. I was in labor land for sure. I, didn't really have a care in the world about what other people were thinking. I was just kind of trying to stay calm and focus and get through it. But I really wanted the adjustment to happen. So I would get back on the table, and he completed that process, and we went back to the birth center. While we were walking down to the car, my doula said, it looks like he has descended lower already. And I'm getting excited. Really? Like, does it look like
awesome?
So when we got back to the birth center, we did a check. He had rotated from his OP position. He had moved his hand, and I was dilated to 8 centimeters.
Chiropractors are amazing.
And that never would have been a possibility if I had been in the hospital, right? I would never have been able to leave to have that experience.
Yeah, and with the nuchal hand, they get really nervous. There's a big chance they would have suggested a cesarean right then and there.
That's exactly what my midwife said after the fact when we were kind of doing our debrief. So we got back, and so I was at 8 centimeters. I felt like I was ready to go. There were some hard moments throughout the journey, and I did have to tell myself, like, you are strong enough to do this. I said a lot of prayers, like, give me the strength to do this. And when this moment came that I found that, we were kind of ready to go, the only thing that was standing in our way was that my water hadn't broken yet. And it was
bulging
him from descending all the way. So then it was, do you want to break your bag of water? There could be a risk for cord prolapse. And I knew that meant a C-section. So I was in this position to choose, but I felt like we should at least try to continue things going. It had been, 26 hours at this point that I had, been laboring with strong enough feelings that I was also getting a little bit tired. Anyway, so I sat on this U stool, and my midwife put on this glove that had like a little spike attached to it. And she just asked me to kind of press down while she was going to go in. And as I pressed down, the water just gushed. It just burst like a tidal wave. It was
awesome.
It was ready.
so bad that I had totally, soaked her in my amniotic fluid, but it was time. We were ready. My midwife looked at me and said, Sarah, this is going to be transition. You need to find your focus. I need you to, really go deep within yourself so that you can do this. Like it could be painful and you just have to take every twist and turn and stay strong. And so at that point, I kind of got my head in the game. My husband turned on a hypnobirthing script, and I just repeated those words as I heard them. That I am safe, I am secure. With each surge, it brings me closer to my baby. And I was just feeling the strength that was within me. And also, sorry, I'm emotional.
No, it's okay. Let it out. This is good.
But it's a magnificent experience to know that you are birthing a baby and just everything that means and the joy that comes with that. And so I was just looking into the eyes of my husband. I was finding that strength within me, and I was really feeling that I could do this and that I had the strength and that we would have a successful VBAC. We had decided that we would labor in the tub a little bit. And so, after a few minutes of, just kind of being in transition and learning how to manage with that, I got into the birthing tub. And the moment that I was submerged in the water, I felt that urge to push, which was a big feeling. And my midwife just said, do it, let it out, just push down. You can do this. So I started pushing a few times, but I could tell from the way that everybody was responding that I wasn't pushing deep enough, that there was something that I was, not really getting at. And while I was, having these progressive contractions, they actually traced the baby and found that his heart rate was decelerating. The mood in the room totally shifted from being calm and that we had all the time in the world to my midwife saying, you have to push this baby out right now. And I thought, I'm not ready. Everything I have studied says that my body will push, that I will know how it should feel, that I can take my time, that I might even get a little bit of a break here to let the baby, ease down the birth canal. But she, just looked me in the eyes and told me that I needed to push this baby out. So they actually pulled me out of the tub and onto the bed and just told me that I had to push. So the pushing part was more intense than I had anticipated, but it also was that moment that I thought, what might happen if I don't push him out? How much time do I really have if his heart rate is decelerating? And so I had the biggest 3 pushes, 3 different contractions that I could ever have imagined, would come from me. And on that last push, I just knew that it was time. I didn't feel a lot of the pain that people talk about. There was no ring of fire. There was no feeling him, descending. It was just that feeling of pushing that baby. And so I looked down and there he is. My midwife caught him. And he was completely wrapped up in his cord. So he had a triple nuchal cord.
Oh my gosh.
Which is why his heart rate had decelerated so much there at the end. Just with him, moving down, it was, eliminating some of his oxygen. So she was rubbing his back, but within, 7 or 8 seconds, he gave the first huge cry and brought him up to my chest, and I just held him and told him how much we loved him and how excited we were that he had been born. And there's a picture that our photographer was able to get that just captures this moment of our pure bliss, just this elation and so much energy in the room. I felt the endorphins just coursing through my body that we had birthed this baby. I mean, I wanted it so bad. I knew my body could do it, but being in that moment where it had happened was surreal. It was that feeling of, wait, we just did this. I just had a baby and I did it vaginally, I did it. That moment was just so unforgettable. He actually nursed right away, which was so redemptive. With my first son, he had an APGAR score of 2 when the C-section happened. And so he was actually in the NICU for a few days, and I wasn't able to nurse him, until a little bit later. And so it was so wonderful just to be able to hold him to my chest and to have him nurse and to know that this bonding period that I really wanted was happening. That was a huge gift to me, and just that feeling that, you know, like, this is how it should be done. This is how birth happens. And even though our timing was in the middle of a pandemic, we were able to have this baby. You know, like, he didn't care that coronavirus was everywhere and that it made the hospital policies different.
Exactly.
And, you know, that maybe his due date, he was, you know, 2 days late. He didn't care about those things. No. He just needed a mom and this process to happen when it was supposed to happen. And, you know, because I was able to debrief with my midwife about this whole situation, she also said, you know, if you had been in a hospital, there would have been multiple occasions that they would have, you know, like, highly suggested or maybe even enforced a C-section, especially with that nuchal hand, with a longer process, maybe with him just being OP, would have made them want to do a C-section. And then right there at the end, they would have taken that from me when his heart was decelerating and said, you know, you're at a 10, you're pushing, but we're going to do a C-section. And I joked that I wanted to make a t-shirt that said, when push came to shove, I pushed. And, you know,
I love it.
I love that. You should, and I will buy one.
We will make it for both of you. You know, just
yes,
because I had that choice, and I know that C-sections are necessary when they are medically necessary, right? And I never felt that it was for me in this process, and I didn't feel like I was jeopardizing my health or the baby's health by continuing through these twists and turns in our delivery process. It definitely made me realize that every birth is uncertain and that there will be ups and downs, and, you know, that a long labor is probably normal and is healthy for a baby and a mom. But I was able to do it, and I felt so excited. We actually were able to come home and sleep in our own bed, and I was able to shower that first night, and I did not feel tired. It was probably like 2 or 3 days later, you know, that I started to feel tired from having not slept for a few nights. You know, but really those hormones and those chemicals within my body helped sustain me and give me the energy and the strength that I needed to kind of, you know, take on those first few days of labor and delivery. And with my C-section, I never had those feelings. I just felt groggy and in a fog and trying to wean myself off of painkillers for a few weeks.
Yep.
And so I just feel like this recovery process, having delivered him vaginally, has been so much better.
Definitely. And
I love it.
Like you said, there's like twists and turns and bumps and hurdles. But one of the things that stood out to me about your birth is your team. You had this team that said, okay, so this is a situation. Let's stop. Let's ponder. Let's discuss what we want to do. Okay, this is our action. We're going to go to the chiropractor. We're going to do this. And all those little things that you were allowed to do, and I say allowed with quotations, like allowed because you're not in a hospital room, and I'm not against hospital birth, but because you weren't like in a space where you couldn't leave, you were able to take all the proper actions that you needed for this birth and this baby to get you to the end result. And I just love that. I love that there's little things like that. I also was adjusted during my delivery twice, actually. I was in really early labor. It was like 1 centimeter, got adjusted, and then the next morning that evening, it was that evening I got adjusted again. And I had only all day, I'd been laboring all day, and I'd only dilated 1 centimeter. It's like, oh my gosh. And she adjusted me again. And the next morning I had dilated 3 more centimeters. My baby was way low, still OP, but way low. And we had some work to do, but still big things, you know. And I was grateful for those experiences. So I'm so happy. Well, I'm sorry that you got fired. Getting fired is not usually a pleasant experience, but it sounds like in this situation, it was probably a blessing in disguise. And we're so happy for you. So happy for you.
Thank you so much. And just like you said, it was a blessing in disguise, because I'm not sure that even though this provider, you know, stated she was VBAC supportive, I think in this birth scenario, it probably would have ended up differently. And so I was actually, you know, fortunate to be in a birth center and with a midwife who has a different model of care.
Absolutely. I think that that's so important. A lot of times people think that out of hospital birth is dangerous or scary, or there was actually a comment in our Facebook community the other day, actually yesterday, from a parent who was trying to give advice to another parent, and she was very strongly against VBAC at home. And she said that there is that your baby is more likely to die by 8 times, like 8 times higher chance of your baby dying at home. And then if your uterus ruptures, your baby will die. And that's simply not true. It's just not true. There's no facts or evidence to support that. In fact, all the recent studies show that home birth is just as safe, or in some instances, safer than hospital birth. And so the midwifery model of care is very, very important. So MANA is the Midwife Alliance of North America, and they put out a standard for care for midwives that practice in hospital and out of hospital. And any certified and registered midwife has to follow the midwifery model of care. And it's important. It talks about, well, actually, I'm just going to read this. The midwifery model of care is a fundamentally different approach to pregnancy and childbirth than contemporary obstetrics. Midwifery care is uniquely nurturing, hands-on care before, during, and after birth. Midwives are healthcare professionals specializing in pregnancy and childbirth who develop a trusting relationship with their clients, which results in confident, supported labor and birth. While there are different types of midwives practicing in various settings, all midwives are trained to provide comprehensive prenatal care and education, guide labor and birth, address complications, and care for newborns. The midwives model of care is based on the fact that pregnancy and birth are normal life events. The model of care includes monitoring the physical, psychological, and social well-being of the mother throughout the childbearing cycle, providing the mother with individualized education, counseling, and prenatal care, continuous hands-on assistance during labor and delivery, and postpartum support, minimizing technological interventions, and identifying and referring women who require obstetrical attention. The application of this model has been proven to reduce to incidence both injury, trauma, and C-section. Now, I think that's really important because a lot of people think midwives are just like hippie dancing around the birth room, waving the incense and sage cleansing.
And they're not qualified.
And they're not qualified, exactly. But midwives have a very specific scope, especially for out of hospital. Every state law is a little bit different, but there's always a point where a woman would risk out of midwifery care and need to be seen by an obstetrician. And so when we hear stories of parents saying, well, I had a twin birth at home and I needed to be induced at 36 weeks because preeclampsia or da-da-da. And if I would have given birth at home, I would have died. Well, you wouldn't have been giving birth at home because a midwife would have transferred your care with such a complicated pregnancy, right? So when you have an experienced midwife there with you, out of hospital birth, whether at home or at a birth center, is just as safe or safer than an in-hospital birth. And you have lower rates of intervention, induction, and cesarean because these midwives, like it said at the beginning, they're fundamentally different. There's a fundamentally different approach where we trust the body, we trust the mother, we trust the baby. And as long as everything remains low risk and healthy, and the midwives do all that they can to monitor and ensure that both mom and baby are safe during their pregnancy and birth. And guess what? They have the same diagnostic procedures and do the same tests on a birth parent as a hospital does, the exact same ones. They know how to measure and guide and watch and transfer care either during or while in labor, or before or while they're in while parents are in labor. So I'm glad that you took that leap of faith, Sarah, because jumping to out of hospital birth when you're that far along pregnant can be a very scary thing.
Intimidating.
Yeah, it can be for sure, because it's not something that you've prepared for or planned, and it's hard to switch and make plans and preparations so late in the game, but it sounded like you did a really good job following your intuition, listening to your heart, getting educated. You had a really awesome doula who is my friend, and a really awesome midwife who I've actually seen transfer in an emergent situation. And her, oh my gosh, I was just so impressed. It was the first home birth transfer I had ever seen. And she was just amazingly observant and detailed. And she got EMS there before anything became too big of a problem. And mom and baby are healthy and fine and happy now. And it's just incredible. And so, yeah, I see so many clients, and I know, Megan, you've had some too, switch from hospital to home birth. In fact, my last
right now with COVID, it's
crazy.
It's crazy what's happening with people transferring.
People are realizing and seeking out care elsewhere. And I have a first-time mom coming up, and I just had a home birth from a parent who had unmedicated hospital births for her first 4 pregnancies, and she switched to home birth at 36 weeks. And had a beautiful home birth experience. And I like that. I mean, I don't like that COVID-19 is placing so many restrictions on birthing families right now. But what I do like is that it's causing people to think outside of the box. Parents and birth professionals alike. In-hospital providers are working their butts off to make a best experience possible for these parents. Parents are getting educated and making good decisions based on their circumstances. And sometimes that means switching to out-of-hospital birth or home birth. And us doulas are having to get really, really creative in how we support our clients and prepare them for these different circumstances, and how we support them both prenatally and during their labors when we're not allowed in the hospital. And birth partners are having to step up. These husbands and babies' fathers and co-parents and, whatever
Partners.
whatever birth partner is there, are really having to step up and become more involved. And so I know both Megan and I are putting a lot of focus on getting the birth partner ready to step up into some different roles that they might not have been prepared for. So that was a really long-winded soapbox I just got on about the midwifery model of care, but it really is amazing and trusted. It's guided, it's regulated, it's controlled. Midwives have to adhere to it, or there are consequences.
I love it. I love that people are able to, like you said, think outside of the box, but tune into what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it still may be that they deliver in the hospital. In fact, I had a client the other day, and she's like, I still just I'm too uncomfortable to deliver at a hospital, and then I'm not allowed. And she's like, so if it comes down to it, she's like, I might just get the epidural. And I'm like, that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's totally okay. Her husband is amazing, but she feels there's a difference between her husband and I. And
there is.
I mean, there is it's obvious, there's a husband and a doula, but at the same time, he's very skilled and educated. He is very good. But she said, there's just something different. It's just something different. And I know I've experienced that with my doulas as well. And she's like, I just don't want him to have to feel that pressure. And I don't want to have to feel that pressure to tell him what I need. And so she's like, I might just get the epidural. I'm like, that's okay. So we're educating on epidurals now and what that may look like and feel like. And so, yeah, it's different for everyone. So Sarah, I'm so grateful that you were able to share your story, and I'm excited for everyone to listen.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. And we just love you, and we love your birth team, and we love your doula and your midwife and your friend that I don't know, but Megan does. And we're just so happy that you're part of our community here locally, especially. So thank you again for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me and for the work that you do. I do feel like there is a sense of community once you're a VBAC or while you're preparing for VBAC that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Interested in sharing your VBAC? Head over to thevbaclink.com/share to submit your story. For information on all things VBAC, including online and in-person VBAC classes, the VBAC blog, and Julie and Megan's bios, head over to thevbaclink.com. Congratulations on starting your journey of learning and discovery with the VBAC Link.